Hello and welcome to project number 4 in the Python tutorial series. My name is Steve and today we're going to be writing a much more in-depth adventure game than we've written in the past. In fact, I've named my game Adventure the Game. Of course, you can name it whatever you'd like, but the idea is to create a text-based adventure game with navigatable options for the user and some multiple checks and some random elements to it, and just put together what would probably be the closest thing we've made so far to a full game. Guess the Number was cool. The In the Realm of the Dragon game is a really low-level version of what I'm about to show you right here, built kind of on the same principles, but this is going to go into a lot more depth. And of course, Rock, Paper, Scissors, Lizard, Spock, different style of game. I think it's kind of fun, but it's over fairly quickly. You make one selection, the program runs, and you have a winner, you have a loser, and it's game over. This will attempt to create a more continuous game, and you're really limited only by your imagination. So we're going to run through this game. Different than other challenge programs, I'm going to show you bits of codes and some of the things that I thought while I was developing this game and while I was writing it, and hopefully you'll be able to take this and run with it, making a really cool adventure game. So as we take a tour of Adventure the Game here, keep in mind, one, it's a terrible name for a game, and I probably should have spent more time trying to name it, but number two, there's nothing in the code that we haven't covered in the previous lessons. There's no reason why, if you've mastered all of these lessons and been able to complete the challenge programs, that you won't be able to write this game. The only thing that makes this game challenging is there's a lot of logic to follow and a lot of things to keep track of. It's a more advanced version of the In the Realm of the Dragon game, but you'll definitely be able to program this, and we'll even look at how some of this stuff is generated after we're done taking a test drive of this game. I'm going to press enter to continue, and immediately you can see I've created a title screen using some ASCII art of a sword. I also downloaded a town bit of ASCII art. And so we're in the town of Adventuria. This program is going to use variables to keep track of some details about our adventurer, the amount of gold and experience they have, as well as their level. It's currently set to give the adventurer a level for every 15 experience points they get. We have 5 options available: visiting the blacksmith and armorsmith, checking for jobs around town, evaluating our status, and slaying the dragon. Although the introduction doesn't quite say so, the goal of the game is to slay the dragon, and we'll either do it or we won't. If I go to the blacksmith shop, I get some ASCII art of a blacksmith, and he asks if we want to buy a sword, currently priced at 30 gold. I have no gold right now, so I'm going to say no. I can go to the blacksmith and attempt to buy a sword by saying yes, but I don't have enough money, so I'm asked to come back later and I don't get the sword. The armorsmith works in the exact same fashion. In fact, the armorsmith uses the same graphic because I was too lazy to find another one. The only difference is he's asking us to buy armor priced at 50 gold. But just like the blacksmith, I can't afford it by pressing yes, so I'm told to come back when I have more money. The fourth option I think is kind of a cool option. Evaluate your status. The players might want to know what are their chances of winning. But it's boring if the message is you have a 22% chance of winning or you have a 60% chance of winning. Rather than that, I tried to give it more of a thematic approach. If I hit E for evaluate our status, you pause for a moment and take stock of the situation. You would feel more comfortable fighting with a sword. You lack armor, and that will cost you your life, and your lack of experience worries you. So there's 3 things that we might need to address before we can continue on to slay the dragon: a sword, armor, and experience. And of course, we know where we can get the sword and the armor from. We can check the town for jobs and go on various quests. As it stands right now, I only have 2 quests that can be generated, and it's random. When I hit C to check for jobs, the local mayor asks if we want to clear the area of goblins. That's one of the choices. I'm going to say yes, get a picture of the goblin, we locate and slay them, and receive 24 gold and 6 experience for our trouble. Our main menu now reflects that we have 24 gold and 6 experience. I'm going to check for jobs again and see if we can randomly generate the second job. And excellent, we did. The local blacksmith needs some ore and asks if we'd be willing to go and mine some. We're going to say yes. We get the picture of the mountains to represent us going to find ore and going on a mining trip. We locate a small vein of iron, and the blacksmith is very pleased. We're going to receive 9 gold and 3 experience for our trouble. We now have 33 gold and 9 experience. Let's visit the blacksmith shop and buy our sword because we can afford it now. Hit B to enter the blacksmith shop. Press Y to enter to say we want to buy the sword. And we're greeted with the picture of the sword, a message telling us we have purchased the sword. Our 30 gold has been subtracted from our gold total, but now when we evaluate our status by pressing E, the first line changes to "You have a sword that will help you in the final battle." The game recognizes that we have a sword. Let's check for more jobs. And you've seen the blacksmith. We're going to check for jobs until we have enough to purchase a set of armor. So I'm going to keep doing different jobs. And my vision for this game was to eventually have a number of different jobs that we could check for. But right now it's limited to 2. And here we are. We have 74 gold. We're a level 2 adventurer with 32 experience points. So we're going to visit the armorsmith shop by pressing A. And we're going to tell the armorsmith that we want to purchase our armor for 50 gold. Say yes. We've got our picture of the armor, a message saying that we've purchased the armor. It's subtracted from our total gold. And now when I evaluate my status, some things have changed. You have a sword that will help you in your final battle. You have armor. You have armor that will offer protection against the dragon. And you've gained skill, but you're still not completely confident. That lets me know I could probably do with some more leveling up. However, I think I'm ready to try and slay the dragon, so I'm going to press S to try and slay the dragon, and this will trigger the end game and determine whether or not I win. We prepare to fight. Now all the things I've done in the game up to this point will now play a role in whether or not I win or lose. The dragon lunges at you, biting at your neck, but our armor deflects the blow. The dragon takes a swing at us with his tail, but we raise our sword and deflect the blow. Angry, the dragon makes another desperate lunge, dashing past us briefly. A quick reaction could have ended the fight, but in our exhaustion, we failed to seize the moment. The dragon locates us, inching towards us cautiously. Unable to catch our breath, we're a sitting duck, and the dragon manages to corner us. We have failed, and we have died. All of these checks were based on what we've done in the game. Having armor helped us deflect the blow, and we could have died right there if we didn't have armor. Having the sword helped us deflect the attack with the tail, but because we had the sword, we were able to move on and take on more checks. But this line right here represents that a quick reaction could have ended the fight, and if we would have had more experience, we would have reacted quicker. But since we didn't, it put us into a different check. We failed that check, and the game was over. So with all of this, let's take a look at some of the bits of code of this game and see how it operates and the logic behind it so that you can create your own version of the adventure game. So over here, what I've done is just cycled out some of the code that I used to generate the random quests. You can see kind of how this works, and I had it in a function, but I don't want to give away too much of the program because I'd like you to experiment with it yourself. But this is the function that runs when the user selects C to check for jobs in the town. It starts by generating a random number, assigning it to a value scenario, and the number can be 1 or 2. If the scenario equals 1, then the local mayor asks if we want to clear the area of goblins, and we respond yes or no. Now, I have a variable goblin I, which stands for goblin image, that will then print the image of the goblin, let the user know that they've located the goblins, and then create a random gold amount between 15 and 30, and a random experience amount between 5 and 10. It then prints the appropriate message. You receive X amount of gold and X amount of experience, and then skips scenario 2 because this is in an Elif statement, and finally takes the gold variable, which is the amount of gold the user has, and adds the amount they were rewarded, as well as the experience that they were rewarded, and adds it to their current experience points, and then prompts the enter to press enter to continue. So let's go ahead and add a third option that will work in our game. I'm going to do this just by adding another Elif and set the scenario equal to 3. And then scenario 3 is going to have the user do something. Let's say has a farmer ask the user to rake hay in a barn. So that's going to be the quest the third quest that can be generated by this program. And now we'll print a message that says as such. So a local farmer is looking for help cleaning their barn. Now we're going to ask if the user is going to accept that job or not. And I saved that in a variable called QR, which stands for question response. I was writing this pretty quick, so I didn't have very descriptive variables. I would probably suggest doing a better job than that, but I'm going to say QR equals input, your response, just like we've done in a number of other programs. And now that we know what the question response is, if the user says yes, then we're going to print. And I don't have an image for the farmer yet, but I'll put a placeholder in here, and we'll call this farm image. And this will just be my placeholder code to let me know that I want to get a farm image to put in here when this job is generated. Then we're going to print, you spend the day raking straw from the barn floor. With the successful completion of the scenario, we are going to reward the player with a random amount of gold, and the farmer probably doesn't have a lot of money, so we'll give the player between 4 and 9 gold. Oh, and I got a syntax error here. It's reward underscore G. And the reward in experience is going to be a random number. Oh man, I'm making syntax errors all over the place here. Random.randint, and we'll give the user between 3 and 7 experience for raking the barn. Now that the barn scenario is ready to go, I can come up here to scenario and have the random number generate between 1 and 3 instead of 1 and 2. With all this code in here, we can run the game and see if it works. So we start the game, and all we need to do now is check for jobs. And as luck would have it, our first random number is a local farmer looking for help cleaning their barn. I'm going to say yes. And I see I get the placeholder farm image. We spend the day raking straw from the barn floor. I did not print a message, but I could have printed the message about how much they got. But we can see the amount of gold that was generated was 6 and experience was 4, which was within our range of possibilities. Really quickly, I can scale this and have any number of scenarios I want. I could create 100 scenarios and 100 different jobs for this game really easily just by kind of following this blueprint that I've set up. Once you work on the quest system a little bit, you can do some really fun stuff. Let's just isolate scenario number 1 here, which is the let's clear the area of goblins quest. If the user says yes, we might want to make another series of checks that can make each quest a little bit random. For example, after we print the image of the goblin, we might say if sword, which is a way of telling the program if the player has the sword, then something will happen. In fact, maybe what we'll do is say if not sword. If not sword, as a line of code, says if the player does not have a sword. I had earlier named a variable sword and called it false. So when you start the game, sword equals false, and when you buy the sword from the blacksmith, sword gets set equal to true. So I can say if not sword, which is another way of saying if the player doesn't have the sword, then we're going to create a death variable, set it equal to a random.randint, let's say 1 and 10. So we're going to create a random number between 1 and 10, and then say if death equals 1, then we'll run our game over script, and that will effectively kill the player and print an appropriate message. So if the player attempts to clear the area of goblins without a sword, there's a 10% chance that they'll die and the game is over. Then we could create another variable. Let's say we're going to create a quest seed, and it will be equal to a random.randint between 1 and 3. I can then say if quest seed equals 1, then we'll print you don't find the goblins and you wouldn't be rewarded. Elif the quest seed equals 2. We could have another scenario such as you get lost and can't find your way back. Or, whatever you can think of there. And then finally, else quest seed equals 3. Then we'll go ahead and say you've located the goblins and put that kind of under there. So, this is just to show you kind of the thought process of how to develop a game and how to build it. At the beginning, we just had 2 scenarios. We've now added a 3rd scenario, and the scenario has some thoughtful checks in it as well. It's now checking to see if the user has the sword and killing them, and creating a random scenario where you might not find the goblins every time. You might get lost, and that could have its own series of consequences. Maybe you lose experience. Maybe you set a timer so that you have to complete the game in a certain number of turns. You could possibly go down to scenario number 2 and add a pickaxe to the blacksmith's inventory. Then have scenario 2 only be successful if the player has a pickaxe in their inventory. These are the kind of things that you can think of while you're developing this game. I really hope that you have a good time with project number 4. It's nothing more than a creatively placed series of if and elif statements with a bunch of variables to keep track of what's going on in the game. We've got a gold variable, an experience variable. I have a sword variable set to true or false. You may want a pick variable set to true or false, armor true or false. All these things you can think of. The best thing you can do, though, is just develop the game step by step. Create a game that allows you to go to a blacksmith and buy armor or not. Then add an armor smith and add all the things that you want until you have a completed game. I hope you have a ton of fun with project number 4, Adventure the Game. As always, if you have any questions about how to complete certain tasks within your programs, leave them in the comments and I'll help you out any way that I can. Until next time, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.